Well, hello, that's me again. Today is June 29th, 2025. It is Sunday, and it's a sort of the weekend update, and it's not going to be very long today. But what you see in the beginning is yesterday's celebration of a very tradition which started in 1950s actually in that time Leningrad, and it's celebration of the closing of the Festival of the White Nights. As you know, in summer, St. Petersburg has a pretty long time, so to speak, when there's no night and the sun never really sets down. And obviously, it also celebrates the graduation of the public schools in Russia. And this is very important, and this was actually awarded at some point of time. You can look it up on the internet as the event of the city celebration in Europe, the best one. And frankly, there is nothing out there which can even compare to the scale of this thing. And obviously, the graduates of the schools gather on the shores of Neva and celebrate all those wonderful things about history of the country, and there's an incredible pyrotechnic and light show. And of course, then later they gather at the major concert at the Dvorcovaya Square, which is in front of the Winter Palace. So it's a magnificent event. And people would ask sometimes, I mean, how Russians can do this? Because, yeah, there are many people, and there are still sleeper cells who are ready to commit atrocity, and especially against children, because there is no people who plan this. They don't care if they kill children, and as you already know, and I spoke about this atrocity, for example, in the Ruskaya Porечная village, where all inhabitants of the village have been executed by the so-called armed forces of Ukraine, including children. They have been absolutely executed, shot. I mean, some of them execution style. So that's what modern West is in this respect, because it supports essentially terrorist state. And now, because of that, and it really fits this topic, so to speak, I want to take you back a little bit to the situation. If you all remember the Crocus-city terrorist act, which ended up in killing 100 plus innocent civilians who gathered there for the actually celebration and listening to the concert by the very famous Russian rock band Picnic, and it all ended up in tragedy. And guess what? Now RIA News, speaking about terrorism, which of course I spoke about this on a number of occasions, that terrorism is the weapon of the weak. People who do not possess actually real military power and ability to influence any kind of the events in their favor for their interests of all kinds of interests, be the interest of the group or the interest of even state, they reserve and resort to terrorism. Pure and simple. Terrorism is the political act of the intimidation by means of, blowing civilian objects. And you can argue that when there are attacks on the military installations, for example, that it can kind of pass under the titleage of the military activity or diversionary recon activity, which kind of sort of true. But yeah, when you attack civilians and kill innocents, including children, women, what have you. And so here we are. This is very important to understand how critical it all is. So, as you can see yourself, this is the Crocus-city, and the RIA News, the perpetrators of the terrorist attack in Crocus admitted that it was organized by Ukraine. Yeah, the favored SOBs of the combined West. And so they talk. Essentially, they admitted that perpetrators of the terrorist attack in Crocus-city admitted that Ukraine was its organizer. And those testimonies, which some of those things are happening in the closed regime, for a simple reason, because there is much more involved into this atrocity than merely Ukrainian, which we know, terrorist state. And so RIA News has the testimonies of those animals who killed hundreds of people and wounded And so, well, let's take a look at some testimonies which are critical. And so we start with some facts which have been pretty much known before. And so, to be honest, when I heard this conversation between Fardini and Mirzoev, one of the perpetrators says that I realized that we are being used in the interests of another country, that is Ukraine, which has nothing to do with Muslim world, but solve some of its problems on the territory of Russia by proxy. Absolutely. This is what terrorism is. And we already saw many examples of it. Members of the extremist movement, Vilayat Khorasan, were the only organizers of our actions by order of the state structure of Ukraine, which was eventually confirmed by Saifullah himself, said one of the defenders. Saifullah was the name of this low-life scumbag who also organized this whole thing. And so, Coordinator Saifullah called on them to help Ukraine and convince them that Russia is an enemy for Muslims. The perpetrators of the attack understood that they were being deceived, but decided not to refuse, since Saifullah offered them a lot of money. Of course, money are always involved. There's no doubt about it, albeit some do it for, religious or any other, all kinds of the political or ideological reasons. And so, the perpetrators of the terrorist attack were heading to Kiev, where they were promised 1 million rubles each. Well, and the deposition continues, and it's a fairly large summary. And attorney Igor Trunov, who represent the interest of 95 families of the victims, know that the perpetrators called Ukraine the organizer of the terrorist attack, and other unfriendly countries were the masterminds. According to the testimony, they financed terrorism to harm Russia. So details of the investigative committee investigation are there. Essentially, you can go to the RIA News, turn on the translate to English function, and you will get this all in English language if you need to read all those details. But the key here, as you can see yourself, that is why I stress it, that while Ukraine was the organizer, it's Gur, it's Budanov, all that thing, is unfriendly countries were the masterminds. The question immediately comes to mind. And who those unfriendly countries could be? Well, I can tell you one thing. We know one of them. They just hired the new director of MI6, who has the Nazi background. And those morons, they come out and there in British media and they begin to say that, well, because Mitriveli, which is not Mitriveli, her original name is Dobrovolskaya, and her granddad was, collaborating with the Nazis. They said that because of that, because she has a Nazi background in her family, that makes even more, important for her to defend the interest of the country. What interest of the country? When was the United Kingdom and the United States not involved in the terrorist activity? I don't remember, guys. Honestly, it was always like that. And again, people sometimes misunderstand me when I talk about, for example, British government, that I somehow equate, as many people accuse me, for example, equating Vucic government with Serbian people, which is the whole other can of worms, which is happening right now in Belgrade. Great. They think that I equate all people in Great Britain with, for example, the government of the United Kingdom. No, absolutely not true. I am on record. And I will reiterate again, when I speak British or, in general English people or something like that, it doesn't mean that I, equate all of those people like, no. But British, I even have the sympathy for them. And I explained why many times, because no matter how you vote in United Kingdom, until you dissolve the Chamber of Lords, which is the bunch of the incestuous and, inbreeding type people, because they are aristocrats and they know better than anybody else, and nothing gonna change there. I really, looking at the history of the British people, especially after the World War II, it's not that glamorous. It's a very difficult story. And I obviously understand how many people agonize there in the United Kingdom when seeing what is happening to their country and what is essentially the policy of essentially this being the sponsor of the terrorism, the whole country. And they do not even understand, they cannot grasp it, those elites, that what they do is pure and simple terrorism, and they are lowlifes, not all of them, but most. So, and this is not gonna change until either United Kingdom disintegrates, or we have some magical, I don't know, unicorn moment, and we have the substitution or a change of the British elites. It's not gonna happen. So, and English people, United Kingdom population has to suffer under these conditions. But it is what it is, and we know who those masterminds and who those unfriendly countries are. And but if that hasn't been enough, well, what can I say? We have another type of the, British madness, if you wish, that, they talk about now that Vladimir Putin actually, threats are why aliens haven't made first contact, experts claims. This is Daily Star, and as I already stated, United Kingdom doesn't have anything but tabloids, and as you can see yourself, Vladimir Putin is now guilty of preventing the Earthlings, us, the global civilization, of making contact with the alien civilizations who otherwise would come and give us all those wonderful things like, immortality, just the horn of plenty and things of this nature. So, but yeah, what can I say? What do you expect from some people believe that, and they publish those things and they sell them. That's what is the most amazing thing about all that. And that's not it. We have another development with the Europe going completely bananas, and essentially, as I already stated many times before, it's the fate of Europe. It's done. It's not normal people who run there anything in Europe. And as you can see yourself, as reported by not only RIA News, by the Welt, but I decided to translate it for you from the RIA News, but you can go to the Welt website and read this interview. It's behind the paywall, but I'm not wasting any kind of money on reading all kinds of the garbage. But still, it's very important to keep in mind that the head of the Christian Democratic and Christian Social Unions, CDU, CSU bloc in the Bundestag, that's the main party, essentially, Jens Spahn, spoke in favor of providing Germany with access to nuclear weapons to Great Britain and France, nuclear weapons of Great Britain and France, or the creation of a European nuclear umbrella under the leadership of Germany. So there you go. These are delusional people, and they say those things. Guess what? It's not that they're saying this. Some of them probably understand that they look like cretins, and some of them are actual genuine articles of being cretins. But the point is that, this is what those people, this is how they think. And guess what? Many of their constituents applaud this. And when you look attentively at those CDU or CSU bloc, or you look at the even social democrats and all kinds of those type of parties in Germany, they hate Russian gods, and their constituents do hate Russian gods. So, and that's the reality of Germany. Nothing could be done about it. So now we have another Dr. Strangelove 2.0 with the, German flavor, or should I say Nazi flavor, and he wants essentially, blackmail Russia. Well, what can I say? And he talks talks about that. We must discuss the creation of our own European nuclear umbrella, and this works only with the leadership of Germany. Really? Those who cannot exercise nuclear deterrence will become a toy of world politics, he added. He suggested that France would most likely not agree. Well, you have to be a complete imbecile to agree to this idiocy to give Germany access to the nuclear button. However, control over it can be transferred between European states on a random basis so that a potential rival remains in the dark, the politicians suggested. These are German politicians. Most of them are like this. And when you say that how they will, for example, if you imagine that they somehow decide to to go with this idiotic plan, how they will decide how to, who controls this button. I can tell you how. You take the empty bottle from any kind of the mineral water or what have you, put it in the middle of the carpet or the floor and rotate it. This is one of the most famous and most primitive generators of the random numbers in the world. And so, yeah, this is led France, Great Britain, which United Kingdom, which actually doesn't have really its own nuclear deterrent. And France sit in this circle, if you wish, or triangle, and, spin this bottle until the hell freezes over, and then transfer this red button. I would suggest to make them the fake red button from papier-mâché, and just pass it around. So that's pretty much the level of those people, and this is how they think. All this is driven by the same hatred of Russians. Germans hate Russians in one way, British hate Russians in the other way, French hate Russians some other way altogether, but all of them, they have those historical grievances because they look now as paupers, which they always were essentially, and went through the relatively short period of their greatness, only to lose, in the case of the United Kingdom, its empire, France also losing in its empire, being beaten in the utter submission by Russians, and we all know the story of Germany, in which of course Mr. Trump defeated all those Nazi and Axis armies, but yeah, Russians somehow ended up in Berlin and beat the crap out of the wanted Wehrmacht and SS formations, and all other allies of Nazi Germany, which we all have to remember: Hungary, Italy, Romania, so yeah, all kinds of them. So, and they have grievances. They cannot forgive Russians that they sit on the third of the world resources, have the most outstanding nuclear deterrent and the best army in the world. Yeah, and then we have this economy which for some reason doesn't want to collapse. And in fact, it grows. And as for many people who are, again, you have to understand the average think tank, low-life creature in the United States or United Kingdom doesn't understand the first thing about anything outside outside world. And yeah, so Mr. Putin went on record himself personally, and he stated, yeah, we spent between 6.1 and 6.3% of GDP on the special military operation. And many people say, but they said it was 40%. They said that Russians are about to collapse. Well, so much collapse that yesterday, I believe, we look at 450 geranium drones, 44 cruise missiles, among them 4 Kinzhals attacking Ukraine. Evidently, Russians ran out of those ammunitions and, missiles and shells, and, since what, 2022? And, well, yeah, the result is a devastation. And then, for example, if you take a look at this Shostka, they did their training range, in Shostka, to train those Nazis. Well, then Mr. Iskander visited them, and they now crying that, oh no, we got killed. Of course you will get killed. And for those people who do not understand, and they still live in this confused state, not understanding what Russia is doing, let me explain again. We're going to our good friend Marat for yesterday, and as you can see yourself, it's the Donetsk axis. And what I was talking about, that you see those yellow regions, Russians are not in rush. They move to the west constantly, and they destroy, one brigade after another. And as you can see yourself, there is another wonderful cauldron in not far from Bogdanovka and Alexeyevka. Then there is a, what is called the Zirka, the Yalta. Yeah, this is not actual Yalta, which in the Crimea. This is just, the same name, little hamlet. Russians continue to liberate things there, and Pokrovsk is hurting badly. So we have now the number of the, here we are. This is the number of the KIAs and wounded. If you consider all things which I constantly on the record explaining that it's primarily KIAs. For today, 1,235, and yeah, all kinds of the equipment being destroyed, and you can see yourself. I mean, this is not good, for those guys if they want to really somehow, fight Russia. No, you cannot fight Russia. So that is why it all kind of comes down to what I constantly stress, that you're just not going to survive it, period. And there is a physical annihilation of the, sperm bank of the Ukrainian nation. And they continue to throw everything and everybody, children, women, all kinds of, them cannon fodder that they throw in, and then they get acquainted with, for example, Tosachka and Tos. That's it's a horrendous, weapon. And yeah, you see the result. Now, not only that, but even New York Times admits that, Russia sees a key lithium field in challenge for US-Ukraine mineral deal. You know what? The capture highlights a core problem in the agreement. The more territory Moscow grabs, the fewer resources Kyiv can offer to Washington. Kyiv cannot offer Washington anything because it's all just basically paper which could be absolutely discarded and thrown into a dumpster. And so Mr. Ushakov, the aide of Mr. Putin, so when he speaks about it, he says that, the United States continues to supply weapons to Ukraine. When asked if whether such deliveries are now being carried out, he noted some continue and some do not, as far as I know. But yes, United States continues to provide all kinds of the support for Ukraine, continues with the critical ISR and things of this nature. So Mr. Trump long ago made this war his war, and the fact that they pretend to, lift some sanctions, like they will lift the sanctions for the power plant which Russians built in Hungary, yeah, sure, but again, we have to understand the scale of those things. And we know only now that Mr. Narishkin, for example, chief of the Foreign Service of Russia, he admitted to Mr. Zarubin when Mr. Zarubin was taking the interview with him, and that, we actually have the direct contact with Mr. Ratcliffe, the CIA director, and he says, well, it's good that we have it, because if something comes up, we can discuss it, immediately. So, and this, I think, is a very positive development, obviously, and what can I say? It is better than it was before, but do not expect any kind of the real movements on part of Trump administration, which is preoccupied now with Israel, in actually improving any kind of relations with Russia in any meaningful way. It has been more than half a year of Trump administration, still no return of Russian consulates to the United States, and no return of the direct flights between the United States and Russia. So what can I say? The guy did it, completely on his own. It's his war now, and he is stuck in it in the swamp. And no matter how we put it, that's not good for Trump administration, and it's just not really changes anything in terms, does not change anything in terms of the long-term strategic relations. And as Mr. Ushakov stated already, we discussed the Trump-Putin meeting, but it's really doesn't go anywhere unless those presidents decide to just meet, just because. Other than that, there's nothing to discuss without signing anything meaningful. And that's how it stays. And that's how it will stay. Trump cannot allow himself to actually go and do something meaningful in Russian-American relations, other than those, symbolic steps, really. So, and if you listen attentively to what Russian officials say, that you understand, it's not going to improve much. There is some improvement. At least United States and Russia are talking, and this is good. But what can I say? Well, and that's what I wanted to tell you guys today, and this is kind of sort of with a weekend update, and especially with those revelations on Crocus-city atrocity. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel, and those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too. So have a nice rest of your weekend, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.